Okay, so there were plenty of small migrations and movements to return to Israel. But how did these give way to the organized mass movement of Jews from around the world returning to the land that we know today as Zionism? Well, a large part of what fueled such organization was the idea of Jewish emancipation that emerged from the Enlightenment in the 18th century, combined with the new 19th century concept of nation-states. Added to the mix was the intensifying persecution of Jews in Europe. In 1882, a pamphlet called Auto-Emancipation, Warning to His Kinsman from a Russian Jew, was published by a physician named Leon Pinsker. Pinsker came to the novel conclusion that hatred of Jews, what he termed Judeophobia, wouldn't be overcome by a change in Jews' political status in their host countries or even by equal rights. Instead, he argued for a new approach, the establishment of a sovereign political Jewish state. He then founded an organization called Chovevei Zion, or Lovers of Zion, which began to facilitate the emigration of Jews to the land of Israel. This was the birth of a practical or political Zionism that aimed towards the eventual creation of an independent nation state for Jews. And when Rabbi Samuel Mohilever and his disciple Rabbi Yitzchak Yaakov Reines became leaders of Chovevei Zion and its religious offshoot, the Mizrahi movement, it marked the beginning of religious Zionism as a movement and its early partnership with political Zionism. But these weren't the only Zionist ideas in development. Another Zionist movement began to emerge in 1888 with the circulation of an essay called Lo Zu Haderech, or This Is Not the Way. It laid out a harsh critique of practical Zionism and was written by Ahad Ha'am, the founder of what would come to be known as cultural Zionism. Ahad Ha'am had been influenced by Pinsker's pamphlet and ideas and was a member of Chovevei Zion. But he was critical of the feasibility of practical Zionism and the massive immigration that it envisioned, let alone the large-scale establishment of a nation-state. Instead, Ahad Ha'am proposed the gradual establishment of a Jewish cultural renaissance that would unite Jews across the world with its spiritual center in Israel. Two of its central goals would be a revival of Hebrew language and Jewish literacy. But there were yet other strands of Zionism developing during the same period. Socialist and labor Zionist movements, inspired by Marxist ideals, aimed to work the land in order to create a socialist communal model of society. In time, these efforts would eventually lead to the early kibbutz movement. But then how did all of these different movements eventually come together? Well, this is where a Jewish Austrian journalist named Theodor Herzl finally comes in. Just 5 years after Pinsker's death, Herzl published his book, Der Judenstaat, or The Jewish State, in 1896. This changed everything. Not necessarily because Herzl's ideas were so new, in fact, they were very similar to Pinsker's, but mainly because the timing was so perfect. There had been so many Zionist developments that the stage was now set for Herzl's vision. And so, when Herzl convened the first Zionist Congress, Pinsker's Chovevei Zion was absorbed into Herzl's new Zionist organization. But disagreements remained. Ahad Ha'am, as before, opposed what he now referred to as Westernized Zionism. He saw Herzl's Zionism as devoid of Judaism and as an abandonment of Hebrew language and Jewish culture in preference of a purely Westernized state. He considered Herzl's vision of mass immigration and a nation-state to be wishful thinking. He also objected to the Zionist movement's general dismissal of the Arab population already living in the land. Herzl died in 1904, and so he didn't witness the most significant development towards his vision, which came 13 years later when the Balfour Declaration was issued in 1917. This was a statement by the British government that supported the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. It was a hard-won result of more than a decade of effort by Zionist leader Dr. Chaim Weizmann. Weizmann's mentor, none other than Ahad Ha'am, advised him during the Balfour negotiations. Ultimately, Ahad Ha'am's cultural Zionism merged with Herzl's political Zionism once it was clear that not only was a Jewish state feasible, but that a large immigrant population and Jewish culture were already flourishing in the land. So, do we think there's just one idea that defines Zionism? Or that Zionism is the same for everyone? Whatever one's flavor of Zionism, be it political, religious, cultural, social, or other, the unique advancements for the Jewish people that have come with the State of Israel demonstrate how self-determination fulfills not merely a single expression of Zionism, but a Zionism that can cover the entire spectrum of Jewish life. Zionism is not just about the successful return to Jewish sovereignty that was central to political Zionism, or the spirituality and national redemption that was a concern of religious Zionism, or the establishment of a socialist community dedicated to radical equality that was an ideal of social Zionism, or even the revitalization of an ancient language, literacy, and culture that was the ambition of cultural Zionism. Zionism is all of these things, and much more. It is an acknowledgement of the unique role of the State of Israel in establishing a thriving modern Jewish civilization as the embodiment of the Jewish people's connection to their ancient homeland that is rooted in history and dedicated to the future. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week.